Hello, it's Tommy. I'm back again working on my hand. If you saw my last video, I kind of got to a point where I couldn't go any further. This is about it. But I've since made some breakthroughs that I'm excited to share with you. Here's where I was at. I had this hand that would sort of bend like this, and it like kind of open up on the top. And I tried to have a rubber strap to pull it down and a rubber band to pull it up. But it had all sorts of problems that I couldn't fix. But I went with a different technique. So I went with origami where it would collapse on the bottom this time. And I found that that worked pretty well. I did a number of different versions where I was able to get it to bend pretty far. But I ran into all these sorts of problems, right? First off, if the finger is too wide, these things start bumping into each other pretty quickly. And you can see that. That was one of my first versions here. They're pretty thick. My issue is I can only get the fingers to bend so far. I only have so much pulling strength with my fingers to get the fingers to bend. So I could only get them to bend about to here, which wasn't quite good enough. I tried a bunch of different folding techniques. Like I tried a double fold here to give it extra fold. I tried these techniques where it was a mismatch fold, so that it would fold so they'd miss each other and I could collapse further, but it'd always go sideways. I'd kind of have a misalignment there. And that's where I figured out that in order to reduce the length that I needed to pull them, I could make these smaller, but then it made the fold not fold quite as much. So what I ended up doing is I realized that if I reduce the width, that will increase the fold so that I could get close to a 90-degree fold, which is kind of what you want with each finger joint, right? To go 90 degrees. And I was able to keep the fold but reduce the length that I had to pull these things. And so you can see here I kept getting thinner and thinner and thinner on these fingers until I got to a quite thin finger where I could bend without pulling too far. I could bend pretty far. So you can see, yeah, with my next prototype, I made them even thinner. I reduced the thickness on these to get them to go smaller, and that worked pretty well. But then on my last one, went really small. Look how thin those are, and they're pretty thin, and I get more bend for my buck on each of these. So that was the best. But the other thing I had to figure out was to get the amount of distance that I had to bend the finger to make this finger bend as far as I needed to. And so I've tried so many different things. I've tried pulleys, different kinds of pulley systems with complicated pulleys, sometimes with 3 pulleys or more. And I came up with a super simple single pulley that, so basically I have this anchored, I have the strap anchored here, goes down through this pulley, and then goes up through the rest of the hand. And so I pull that single pulley, and it's basically a reverse pulley technique. I'm adding more strength so that I can go further distance. And that works pretty well. So that's what I've done on all these fingers, is there's just a single pulley in there that I use to create that. I still didn't always have quite enough pull, so on some of my last prototypes, I put a second pulley up in the tip here. So you've got a pulley down here, and I got a second pulley up here, so it goes up and around this pulley, and it goes up and around this pulley and anchors here, which gives me just a little bit more bend that I want on these fingers. One other thing I ran into was, you'll see here, my finger spread. You can only, so like with all these fingers, I can only stretch my fingers out so much, and that gets really difficult at times. So one of the things I adjusted to was I created these lanes for each of the fingers to go into, and it was a problem because these fingers were kind of way out on the side, and so I had to create the pulley system up in here, and then create a little stick, a little kind of rod that would come down and then put my handle for my finger. And so I would pull, so now I can pull these down now I can pull these down by pulling the rod, which pulls the pulley up here and has those adjust. So and now those work pretty well. Last was the thumb. The thumb was complicated because your thumb is very strong, but I don't have a lot of movement here. Not only that, but I'm using all this space already for my index finger, so I only had this little bit of space here for me to compress my thumb. And so I had to build a small pulley here to collapse it. And I even was hitting up against this handle here, so that I don't have a lot of room. I've got just a little bit of room in between the backside and the finger here to compress it. Now, what I want to do on a regular thumb is I want it also to be able to fold it in so that I can actually grab something. I haven't been able to figure that one out yet. So after several versions, this is about as far as I can go. There's basically two issues at this point. I still can't get the fingers to bend far enough. They can bend about that far, but the length that I need to pull, my fingers won't bend that far. And if I put additional pulleys in, like 2 or 3 pulleys, it becomes too much friction and it's too hard to pull them in. So that's about where I'm at. Additionally, the thumb, I can pull it down, but I haven't figured out how to make it collapse inward as well as collapsing down and inward at the same time, and that's caused some issues. So right now I've just been able to get it that way because I want it to collapse inward so that I can make it opposable, so an opposable thumb so I can pick things up. So this might be the best that I can do, which is cool, but not as cool as I wanted it to be. I would not call this complete. I'm going to leave it there again. If I have any great epiphanies, I'll get back on it and we'll try it again. But thanks for watching.